Welcome back, dear listeners, to our second and final part of our podcast on challenges facing Agri-SME financing in East Africa. I'm still joined by Victor Musyoka, a risk and fraud manager at Microsave.
Thank you, Justus, for having me. I look forward to a fruitful discussion.
Victor, we have seen in East Africa markets a lot of Agri-SME struggling to scale and raise their profitability. Kindly take us through some of the risks that may prevent such SMEs in their bid to scale in East Africa.
Definitely. There are several risks that such agribusinesses face as they try to scale or improve on their profitability. Some of these risks include commodity or price risk, climate or weather risk. We also have production risk, human risk, competition risk, political risk, and fraud risk. Now, I'm going to go through these risks in detail, provide a few examples here and there, and also describe mechanisms or solutions on how to mitigate against this risk. So on the first risk, which is the commodity or price risk, this is usually caused by the fluctuation of commodity prices in the markets. This depends mostly on the level of produce in the market, that is the law of supply-demand. And this can be mitigated by having production or farming contracts in place with the farmers, inclusion of forward and option contracts to do with the farming and provision of these farm products, and also by having accumulated or buffer stock for these agribusinesses to cater for periods where there is low production or commodities are deemed expensive. On the second risk, which is climate or weather risk, this is caused by the adverse climatic changes, especially unpredictability of climatic conditions in the East African market. This could be due to things like drought, flooding, and frosts, which causes lack or low quality of produce. A way of mitigating against this is encouraging the farmers to have crop insurance and to practice crop irrigation, and also to be able to plant drought resistance strains or varieties of these farm products. The other risk is production risk. Now this is caused by the risk of loss or theft or damage to farm products, or also by inconsistent, inadequate produce supply, seasonality of agricultural produce, breakdown on machinery, and pests and diseases. Now, to mitigate against these production risks, agribusinesses need to encourage farmers or advocate for crop insurance, diversification into more farm produce to overcome the seasonality of some of these farm products, and also encourage the guarantee or provide guarantee on farm input, supplies, and equipment financing for these farmers. The last way of mitigating against production risk is maybe to provide training or technical assistance to the farmers to provide them with most farming skills and awareness. Now, on human risk, this is courtesy of in East Africa, smallholder farmers rely on family members for farm labor. So because of this, things like illnesses, permanent disability, or death of a farmer could lead to reduced production or provision of farm products to these agribusinesses. Also coupled with poor agricultural business and financial management skills by these farmers. So to mitigate against this human risk, farmers could be encouraged to pick up life or health insurance for farmers, which is also coupled with most of the credit facilities provided by most financial institutions. Another thing would be to train these farmers or provide technical assistance to counter the poor agricultural and business or financial management skills by these farmers. And another way would be for the agribusinesses to lease farms and manage the whole farming process on themselves. We also have competition risk. example of which is loss of farmer contracts to competitors, probably who provide better prices or returns for these farmers. Another example is side selling to other companies against the farmer contracts. Now, one way of countering or mitigating against the competition risk is to have strict implementation of the farmer contracts that we talked about earlier, or provide timely execution of contractual obligations to ensure the farmers are satisfied with the contractual arrangements. We also have the political risk. Examples of this are political instability leading to low production or inaccessibility of some of the areas, and also imposition of trade sanctions by key global markets, which could interrupt the operations of agribusinesses. Now, political risk can be viewed to be out of the control of an agribusiness, but there are ways in which agribusinesses can mitigate against these risks. One of which is to anticipate periods of high political tension and minimize activities during such periods. This mostly happens during election periods, so agribusinesses can do so by ensuring they have little operations during such periods. Another way of mitigating against this is getting political risk insurance, which is popular nowadays from the insurance companies, and also provide diversification of product markets to several global regions to be able to hedge or limit the impact of such political trade sanctions on the farm's revenues. The last risk is fraud risk, which can be perpetrated internally by staff of the agribusiness or externally by partners and staff on the farmers, that is the supplier farmers. To mitigate against this, agribusinesses need to ensure they have adequate internal controls within the agribusiness farm to ensure they deter against such fraud risks. Another thing is to conduct adequate due diligence or compliance checks on partners before commencing of business relationships. This is to ensure good social standing or reputation for these partners and to mitigate against the fraud risks. The last mitigation way of against fraud risk is conducting farmer education and training to ensure they are aware of their obligations and rights in such contractual and farming relationships, and to better manage or report incidences of detected fraud.
Thank you, Victor, for joining us and shedding light to our listeners on the challenges and risks facing agribusiness and agribusiness financing in East Africa. Dear listeners, we thank you for participating in our two-part series podcast on challenges in financing Agri-SMEs in East Africa. Microsave continues to support various Agri-SMEs across the globe at startup level and scale. You can reach us on various aspects of enterprise transformation, be it needs assessment, business planning, risk assessment, investment option, advice on short-term and medium-term financing, when you have issues with working capital needs and capital expenditure, and any other technical advice that you may require. For more of what Microsave can do, visit our website at www.microsave.net. Join us for our next podcast series where we focus on the future of smallholding farming in East Africa. We'll be looking at the key insight from precision agriculture and how this is yielding crucial data that is helping in shaping the smallholder financing in East Africa.